Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're watching this video around the time of its release, then it's early December, which means Christmas is just around the corner. Now of course that means it's time to be buying presents, but if you have a guitarist in your life, sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge. So in today's video I thought, as a bit of a festive one, we'd do a do's and don'ts of buying a gift for a guitarist. Now, to keep up with the festive and Christmas theme, I thought we'd do this in the form of a naughty and nice list. So I've got a few entries for both lists that should give you some better idea of how to buy a gift for someone that you know that plays guitar. So let's get into it. And we'll start off with the naughty list. So let's find out what gifts are going to land you with coal in your stocking on Christmas morning. And the first thing I want to talk about is sort of novelty items and sort of knickknacks. You see this quite a lot. You see sort of various items, sort of household items or otherwise, that are just guitar themed. They're often very generic, and it's not that we as guitarists don't appreciate them, it's just, especially if it's sort of a random item, say a kitchen item that we don't have use for, it will just end up in a drawer and take up space. And us as guitarists are already, I think, speaking for myself at least, are already quite a hoarder sort of bunch. As you can see behind me, my collection of many things that take up a lot of space. The last thing we really need is more tat and crap to fill up that space. I'll give you an example. This was one that was bought very kindly for me, I believe by my mum. And it's not that I really didn't appreciate it, it's just this takes up space in my drawer because it was a fun idea as a bit of a novelty, but the fact that it is guitar shaped has actually meant that it works worse as what it's meant to be. Obviously this is a pizza cutter, but as you can see with the way the headstock is designed, this actually scrapes along your pizza, pulls all your toppings off, and then it being wood, it's a real pain in the ass to clean. So as much as I appreciate that being bought for me, a regular pizza cutter would have been absolutely fine and preferred, and I bought myself one of those to replace it. That's just an example, but there's lots of things like this that just aren't necessary, and as much as we appreciate the thought, your money would be better spent elsewhere on something else, you know. The next thing I want to talk about on the naughty list is learning gadgets or gimmicky tools. So some examples of this would be things like we've seen on the Guitar Gubbins series on this channel. Things like finger trainers and those weird things that clip over the neck that mean you just press down buttons to play chords. That's the sort of thing I'm thinking of. For the most part, they aren't worth the money, and they're not really worth it, and again, they're just going to take up space and they get thrown in a drawer and never used. There's loads of things like this, you generally find them on Amazon and places like that, and yeah, they're just not really worth it. And really, the final thing I'm going to talk about on the naughty list is one that might surprise you a little bit more, but one that goes sort of hand in hand with a point that I have to make on the nice list later on in the video, and that's not doing your research properly. Now, if you're feeling very generous, you might think you want to go out and buy the guitarist in your life a pedal, a guitar, an amp maybe. But guitarists are a very particular bunch and like things set a certain way. And very often we have an idea in mind of, if we were to buy this type of pedal, this type of amp, of what we would want. And so this one's a bit of an in-between one. But if you are wanting to do that, that would be hugely appreciated. But just make sure you do your research, get it right, either find out from them or a friend what they would want it to be, and don't just sort of go, oh, that's on sale, or that looks cool, or that looks like something he would play, and just buy it for that sake. Because, like I said, we're a fussy bunch, we like things a particular way, especially when it comes to things like chasing various tones and pedals, guitars and amps. We like things a particular way, so just make sure you do your research and then you'll get it right. But so yeah, the final thing to round off the naughty list is just not getting your research done and buying the right thing. So let's go over to the nice list and talk about some things that will win you brownie points with the guitarist in your life. Now, one thing that is always massively appreciated are just the boring consumable bits that guitarists hate to buy and spend their money on. I know from personal experience that you're always looking for the next pedal or that sort of thing, and so when you have to go and spend a few quid on some strings or, you know, some guitar polish, fretboard cleaner, little things like that, it's not as fun and it feels like money that could be put towards the next flash thing. So little stocking fillers, things like that. So like I said, strings, various cleaning products, microfiber cloths, wire wool, this sort of thing are always really appreciated. The only thing I will say, going back to my last point on the naughty list, is make sure you do your research if you are going to buy some sort of strings. For those of you who aren't as aware or don't play guitar, strings come in different gauges, and that is how fat the string is. Now, depending on what style of guitar, what sort of music they're playing, what tuning they're playing, guitarists prefer different gauges of strings. So just make sure you find out which sort of strings they like beforehand before you buy them. The other thing that will win you bonus points as well when it comes to strings is finding out which specific brand they like, because I find that different guitarists prefer different brands of strings as well, just because they all feel that little bit different. The next thing on my list is one that, again, is something that guitarists might necessarily not want to buy themselves because they can be a little bit expensive, but are really useful, especially if the guitarist in your life is more into doing their own sort of DIY bits and, you know, doing their own setups or customizing, that sort of thing. And that is a good toolkit and good tools. Now, someone like Ernie Ball will make a guitar setup toolkit that you can buy, although these tend to be quite expensive. But a good set of things like Allen keys, soldering irons, and things like this can be really helpful and great for a guitarist. Now, like I said, these things can be very expensive, especially if you buy them in sort of a branded kit, but equally, a set of Draper Allen keys or a Draper soldering iron, something like that, can be more affordable and are good quality and would be more than good enough for working on a guitar or anything else. But I think for working on a guitar, really your main things are a Phillips head screwdriver, Allen keys, and maybe a soldering iron for doing the electronics. If you have these three things and good quality ones of these, they should A, last a good long time, and should cover you for any job you need to do on a guitar. The next thing on my nice list that's always helpful and we always like to have extras of is cables, whether that's short little patch cables, if your guitarist is more into sort of pedal boards and that sort of thing, or whether that's just your classic longer instrument cable. It's always good to have spares knocking around, as these things don't last forever, they get worn out, and having a spare is always a nice thing. If you are buying something like this, it's important to just make sure you get a decent quality one, as there are some slightly crap, very cheaply made ones out there. Now, they can start to get more expensive, and you don't need to worry about going for like the crazy gold plated blah blah blah, but just a decent quality standard cable from a known brand is a good idea. Brands like Fender, D'Addario, Ernie Ball, and countless others make nice quality cables that will do the job just right. Now, the penultimate thing on my list is a group of things that I consider to be a little bit more left field, but that can be very cool, especially if you have a guitarist that's into doing more experimental stuff, or that likes a sort of a new challenge, that kind of thing. And that's things like EBows and looper pedals, and things that change the way you play or that give you a good sort of option for practice. Now, I'm a massive fan of the EBow, and I think every guitarist should have a play with one of these. Basically what it is a device that you hold over the strings of your guitars. It generates a magnetic field which causes the string to continually resonate, and it gives you an interesting different sort of tone, and I guess it's designed to sound like a bow, you know, on a violin. Whether it does that, I'm not sure, but it certainly does generate a really cool sound that can be very useful and fun for playing around with. So I would highly recommend one of those if you're kind of stuck with a guitarist that wants something a bit different or unusual. And things like looper pedals are always really great for practice. It just means you can lay down a bass track and then play over it and all sorts of weird things like that. I guess into this category that's sort of more practice and just unusual oriented things, I guess you could also think about practice amps if that would be something they're interested in. Things like the Yamaha THR series or Positive Grid Sparks are always helpful and have things like these loopers and various effects and things built into them. So this one's a bit of a mishmash of sort of slightly left field things that you might not immediately think of. There are lots of interesting things like this. So yeah, EBow, loopers, various little practice amps, and just sort of interesting things. And of course, the final thing on the nice list is that thing that the guitarist has been going on about or wanting for a long time. Now, chances are this is going to be something very expensive, so you've got to be feeling generous for this one. But if your guitarist is anything like me, they will have some things in mind that they've wanted for a long time and they've possibly talked about. So if you just make a note of these things, they will always be the most appreciated because that's the thing they've had their heart set on for the longest time. And this is my point that really is the other side of my naughty list point of make sure you do your research. Especially when it comes to something specific that the guitarist wants, just make sure it is the exact right thing, because there are variations within products and things that to someone who's not as familiar with the guitar world could potentially get confused with. So if they have a friend or someone like that who can lend a hand, even better, or they might be able to give you an idea of the thing that the guitarist has been chasing for the longest time. But really, this is the easiest and most surefire way to get the right thing. But there you go, so that's just my thoughts on how you should approach buying a gift for a guitarist. I hope this gives you some idea and it proves to be useful. If you're a guitarist yourself, let me know down in the comments what's on your wish list for this year. And if you're not a guitarist and you're looking to buy for a guitarist, let me know down in the comments either what you do end up going for or what your most successful gift that you've bought for someone over the years has been. But all that's left for me to say is have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.